Paying off your mortgage is stupid. Paying off my mortgage was one of the best things I ever did. These are the two opposites I seem to hear all the time. So in this video, I've gathered all the information to make an unbiased video explaining whether you should pay off your mortgage early or not. And the answer is, it really depends. So watch this video. Now, as an investor, it will be very easy for me to say, oh, don't overpay on your mortgage. That's stupid. Just use your money to invest instead. And that's the thing. I did that. I posted a couple of videos on Instagram and TikTok. And as the comments started to come in, I got slated. And then I quickly realized that that video was based only on my circumstances. I didn't consider other factors that come into play. So this time around, it's not about me. It's about you. I'm going to start with the pros, followed by the cons. And then after that, you can decide what's good for you. My job is to try and be as unbiased as possible for you to decide which way you want to go down and what's good for you or not. So let's get into it. Whenever you ask people why they overpay on their mortgage, the most common reply is that by doing that, they're saving money on interest. It's actually a fair point because in the UK, interest rates on mortgages, they've typically hovered around 2 to 3% over the past decade, even though I know they've kind of shot up over the past few years since 2020. As a result, paying off your mortgage early, it would have saved you thousands of pounds in interest over the life of the loan. So as an example, let's say you have a house worth £200,000 and you've paid off £75,000 already. That naturally means that it leaves you with an outstanding mortgage of 125k. Now, if you overpaid £150, 150, using that 3% interest rate, you'd save £15,400 in interest alone. £15,000, whichever way you look at it, is a lot. And to top it off, you'd pay the mortgage off 6 years and 9 months earlier. So based on those numbers, I can see why you'd want to pay off your mortgage, especially if you've got no other use for that money. So one of the biggest reasons why people are against paying off their mortgage early is because they believe they can get a higher return by investing that money elsewhere. But if you look at what happened on February 2020, the stock market, it crashed by something like 20% or something like that. 6 months later, it bounced back to record highs. And then by the end of 2022, it crashed again by like 20% again. The point I'm trying to make is that any investment is never a guaranteed, no matter what. But what is a guaranteed return in a straight line is by paying down your mortgage. What I mean is that if you choose to pay an extra £100 a month, or even £150 a month, like that example I gave you, towards your mortgage, you know for a fact that you're saving on the mortgage interest rate you're paying. If your mortgage rate is 1.5%, that may not seem like a lot, but if your mortgage is up for renewal soon and the interest rates are rising, those higher interest rates become more attractive to you because your guaranteed returns are higher. So just bear in mind that overpaying your mortgage guarantees you a fixed return, whereas no investment opportunity never ever could give you that. If you think investing is risky and you prefer security over uncertainty, then paying off your mortgage early, it wouldn't be a bad idea. Next up is increased cash flow, because as you start to chip away, right, slowly paying off the mortgage, your monthly payments, they start reducing. Assuming your income and other expenses remain the same, that frees up cash flow for you to do whatever you want with it. The way prices are increasing all the time, if you're mortgage free, you've got one less thing to worry about, and it's because you've got more money to cover those costs. If you've got no mortgage, you've got more flexibility, right, to make all the purchases. You can go on more holidays and all that fancy stuff.
We'll get back to the video in a few seconds, but 70% of you watching this video aren't subscribed to my channel. Please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button and buy more properties in the next few months. I'll be sharing everything so you can learn from my mistakes for free. Anyways, back to the video.
There's other benefits that you may like. If you're paying extra towards your mortgage, your outstanding balance is going to be less. This is called your loan to value ratio, or LTV. And if you've got a lower LTV, you're seen as less risky to lenders. This means that when you do go to refinance in the future, you might get offered lower interest rates. So that's kind of a plus point as well. I also read somewhere that 13% of people continue to pay their mortgage after they've retired, which is kind of shocking. I don't know about you, but once I I've retired, I don't really want to be worrying about any mortgage. So if you do pay your mortgage earlier, you'd avoid that stress in the future. And judging by the comments on my previous videos, there's a certain beauty in not having to stress about a mortgage. It's a luxury that you can't really put a price on. One thing I forget to mention is that some mortgage companies have early repayment fees. So before you do anything, contact your mortgage provider and ask them whether there's any penalties or charges. I've gone through the pros, the main ones anyway. Now let's flip a coin and go over some of the pros of paying your mortgage early. And the most obvious reason is the opportunity cost. To show you what I mean, let's say instead of overpaying your mortgage, you decide to invest that £150 a month into stocks and shares ISA instead, which is tax-free by the way. And within that ISA, you decide to invest in an index fund like the S&P 500, which has historically returned around 10%. But to be super conservative, let's do some calculations on 6%, okay, not 10. And we decide to invest only for 15 years, even though if you had decided to pay your mortgage off, that would have been done in around 18 years. So 6% instead of 10, invested for 15 years instead of 18. We're being conservative here. You'd still end up with around £43,000 in your bank account. Best thing is it would be tax-free. So if you just focus on the numbers, by paying your mortgage off, you'd save £15,400. But by investing it, you'd nearly triple that, making £43,000 instead. There is an argument that because of the recent low interest rates, yes, it may have been better to invest your money then, but with interest rates now higher than what they used to be, your future returns will be far from that 6 to 10% I talked about. There is some truth in that, but remember that my calculations were already pretty conservative with the 6% returns and 15-year horizon. But whichever way you look at it, over the long term, history suggests that you'd make more money by investing than paying off your mortgage quicker. The reality is no one really knows what's going to happen to interest rates in the future. So for a long time, I've always thought that the cost of borrowing is simply the interest rate I'm paying, which sounds pretty straightforward. But as I started to get more interested in business, personal finance and stuff like that, I started to realize that even though inflation takes a hit on your investment returns, it also pays down your debt. If I've confused you, let me try and explain this properly because it's pretty cool and it's useful to know. So using the same example we used before with that £200,000 property and with the £125,000 mortgage remaining, imagine you decided that you wanted to refinance this month at a rate of just say 5%. That means at the end of next year you'd owe an extra £6,250, so a total of £131,000. But considering the current rate of inflation at the time of recording this video is now, it's gone lower now, so it's 2.3%. That basically means the value of that £131,000 been reduced by the 2.3% inflation to £128,000 in real spending power, where actually you've just made a profit of £3,230. Though we've had record high inflation since 2020 and it's coming back down now, historically the UK's target inflation rate hovers around 2.5% or something like that, which means that the debt that you owe on your mortgage is slowly going down by that 2.5% inflation, but at the same time your property's values goes up as well. Okay, so far, right, this video has revolved around either you paying your mortgage off early or you're using that money to invest instead. But you might think that you've got better use of those funds elsewhere, like paying off your debt or building up an emergency fund, especially if you have high interest loan or limited savings. Another reason could be that you just haven't got enough savings for your retirement and you want a bigger cash bar for that before you even think about paying down your mortgage or not. Because if you want a bigger cash bar for your retirement, then that may make more sense for you. Don't forget, there's other options that you could consider. Maybe you do both, right? Keep half towards investing and the other half towards paying off your mortgage so you don't get FOMO. Or you may want to pay down some of your mortgages for a few years and then invest later on. You need to decide what you need to do. Don't listen to others, because I realize myself, everyone's circumstances are different. They have their own goals and may be in a different financial position than you. And not to mention that everyone's risk tolerance is different. Whatever you decide to do, take your time, do more research, and if you're one of those people who's decided that I would rather invest my money than paying it off, then what I'm going to do, I'm going to put up a video called Buy to Let Basics for Beginners Full Guide. Go watch that video if you like this one, and I'll see you soon.